Hello Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here and welcome to the channel. And welcome to another episode of My Collecting Life, the weekly series where I get to chat with you, members of the toy collecting community, about your own personal collections, finding out what got you into collecting in the first place and what gives you that toy collecting buzz. Okie dokie then, so who is the guest on this week's episode? Well, why don't we all find out? Sit yourselves down, make yourselves comfortable, and let's take a look at some of his collection in a musical montage. What an absolutely fantastic Star Wars collection, superbly displayed, some great pieces, and it just looks amazing. It is a pleasure to welcome to the channel for the first time, Jason, also known as the middle-aged Kiwi man collecting Star Wars. How are you, sir?
Kia ora, Stu, or should I say Sue? Thank you so much for having me on. I'm well. How are you?
There's another one getting in there early. Nice one. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. What a turn of events that was. Who would have thought that HasLab Ghost would have backed? Fair enough. I can't say too much more about that. Yeah, I felt so confident that wasn't going to back, hence why I come out with that rather ridiculous comment or statement. So, but there you are. But thank you for joining us. Are you keeping well?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, thanks for
Awesome.
having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure having you on. I think it's the first time you've been on a channel, if I remember. Yes, it is. So
Yep.
so basically, I've got 10 questions for you, all about you and your collection. One time roughly about an hour. If we go over, not an issue. But yeah, when you're ready, we'll crack on.
Yeah, ready when you are.
Awesome stuff. Okay, then. So first question: what toy lines were you into as a kid, and what memories do you have of those toy lines?
Yeah, well, as a kid, I played with Lego a lot. I think Lego
Okay.
was probably the go-to. Bit of GI Joe, I would say. After Lego, GI Joe was the one I had the most of.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think I blew up every single figure when I was a teenager, so there's nothing left of my GI Joe collection.
What do you mean
It,
when you say blow up? You what you literally
yeah,
blew them up?
made bombs and blew them up. Yeah. We used
What?
to, as teenagers, we used to make these action movies, which had a lot of fight scenes, a lot of pyrotechnics, very little plot,
Yeah.
no good acting, but yeah, action packed. And yeah,
Wow.
so most of them got blown up in the process of that.
That is
So
crazy.
yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And then I just had little bits and pieces of other toy lines. I had, had a few Transformers. I've still got my
Mm.
Optimus Prime.
Oh wow.
I had one Dino Rider. It was like that. It was just a little tiny piece of everything. Never a big collection.
Yeah. Yeah. With the Lego, what? Because I started collecting the Star Wars sets. So what kind of Lego was you into? Was it space Lego? Was it the city Lego? Because at that time, the movie sets hadn't been introduced then, had they?
Yeah, that's right. That's before they got onto the licensing pot of gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I used to like the space, which in the 90s was sort of like the M-Tron, the Blacktron,
Yeah.
Space Police, that kind of stuff,
Mm.
and a little bit of City. But I think because Star Wars Lego was 99, so I
Yes.
remember a
Yeah.
friend, one of my best mates and I, we used to make Star Wars vehicles out of the other Lego. So I had a red and black ATST that was about this tall,
Oh
and
wow.
he had an AT-AT that he'd built just out of grey Lego pieces. So
That's incredible. That's incredible. And what about Saturday morning viewing, like cartoons and stuff like that, like Master of the Universe, Mask, Transformers? Were you into that kind of thing as a kid?
yeah, I think so. My memory's not so great, but yeah, Mask as well. I had a couple. I've still got a couple of Mask vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah, and Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I remember. And then, yeah, of course, well, as you know, all those lines with the toys, but also the trading cards. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles from the trading cards and stuff like that.
Mm. Yeah. Awesome stuff. Um, what about when you went into like toy stores? I mean, I know over here that in the UK, the toy stores used to be pretty full of, you know, toys and stuff like that, from like shelves fully stacked. Was it pretty much like that in New Zealand where you are?
Yeah, we did have dedicated toy stores, and yeah, that was always a treat, leading up to
Mm.
Christmas or leading up to birthday, getting sort of unleashed in a toy store. And I never really had Star Wars growing up. I had one Star Wars figure, and that was the Luke Endor with
Okay.
Poncho. He was the only one
Mm.
I had because I was coming into at the end of the line. But I do
Yeah.
remember local toy stores still having those all over the place.
Okay. Cool. So, what was I'm guessing that was your first introduction of Star Wars. And had you seen it before you got the figure?
Well, my experience of watching Star Wars was on VHS and TV replays and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah, so I remember watching it a
Yeah.
lot,
Was
but
that the
never
first one, or was
never
that
the
all
films.
all, all three movies?
All three, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was born in the very late 70s, so I didn't see
Okay.
any of those at the movies.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay. Awesome stuff. So I thought I was going to know the answer to this question, but I think I've changed my mind now. I don't think I will be. knowing what the answer is. What was your favourite toy line as a kid, and why?
As a kid, it was Lego,
Yeah,
absolutely, and I think it would have been because of the unlimited potential of it, right?
yeah, absolutely.
And you could use your imagination, and you could pull pieces of your sets apart and build something else, and yeah. But I guess that sort of maybe goes into why I collect Star Wars now, and it maybe is about the world building aspect as well.
Yeah. So was that so Lego stuck with you then all through your childhood then? Because I know when I asked that question to other guests, they say, well, at the time it was so and so. Then the next thing came out and I moved on. Was that the
Mm.
same with you? Was it, or has it always been Lego?
I think as a kid, Lego was consistent from a young age till maybe early teens,
Yeah,
and then I had just little bits and pieces of other things that came and went. So the GI Joes, the mask was a short run for me.
yeah.
I only ever got three things. Yeah, so like I said, I had a little bit of everything, but nothing substantive of anything growing up.
And do you still have your childhood Lego? Is that or have you got rid of that?
Well, I've got kids now, so yeah, I've got all the Lego that I had as a kid. We still
Oh
have.
wow! Yeah, awesome.
Um, but I remember going into my son's room one day, and he was tipping my old Lego into his Lego, and he goes, "It's mine now, Dad." But
Awesome stuff.
um,
And how old's your son?
he's 13 now, so
13. Wow.
he's grown out of it. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. So he's got a lot of Star Wars Lego.
Yeah.
I got a couple of bits and pieces, and then I started to make up some of my childhood sets. So I've got a bit of Mtron and a bit of Blacktron on
Okay.
display. Yeah.
And what does your son make of your collection? Well, what does your family make of your collection?
Yeah. So my kids were both exposed to Star Wars at a very young age. So,
Yeah.
uh, we watched the films when they were growing up, and they were into it when they were younger. And then they both moved away. But yeah, when they were growing up, they'd sort of they'd have kids over to play. They go, "Come and see Dad's garage. Do you like Star Wars?" So they'd bring kids in.
Oh wow.
Um, but yeah, so that was quite cool. And the other funny one is my mother-in-law. She'll bring people up, and she'll you know come and see Jason's Star Wars room.
Oh
Bring them up.
really? Yeah.
Yeah,
She's quite proud of it, is she?
I think so. And
That's
my
awesome.
my son-in-law's a bit of a nutter kind of a way, but
Yeah. No. That's you want to start charging for tools. That'd be all right, wouldn't it? Yeah. Awesome stuff. Um. So when did you stop playing with your toys then, and when did you become a collector?
mm, yeah. So I was thinking about when did I become a collector, and I think one of the things that really resonated with me growing up was 1989 Batman, which I think is true for quite a lot of our generation. It was
Yeah.
a great
Yeah.
film, and all the hype and all the merchandise around it. And I've still got a sort of a magazine companion that came out at the time, and flicking
Okay.
through it, and it talks about how they made the movie and all of that. And then there's a bit you get to, and it's like there's this dude who's collected all this Batman stuff. And so there's all these photos of him sitting in his collection room, and it's like, wow. Like little 10-year-old me was like, oh wow, I think I want to be a Batman collector. So I've got a couple of the figures and started to collect, the cards and some of the
Yeah.
merchandise that was out
Yeah.
at the time. So I would say that was my first experience of being a collector.
Wow. Wow.
Um stopped playing with toys probably early teens, and that would have been, Lego would have been the end of that.
Yeah.
Um and then late.
Was you into gaming at all? Because around about that time there was the Nintendo come out, didn't you? And the games and all that sort of stuff. Was you ever into that?
Yeah, so growing up, I didn't have a console or anything like that, but friends did. So
Yeah.
go around to other people's place and play Shadows of the Empire or whatever.
Oh wow, God, that's a blast from the
Uh,
past, isn't it?
yeah,
Jeez.
and then I think I was maybe 18, 19 when my girlfriend at the time bought me a PS1. So
Okay.
yeah, but the
Oh,
but the
cool.
game the games I played on that, because I'm a bit of a sports nut, so I was playing Jonah Lomu Rugby and
Okay. Yeah.
Shane Warne Cricket. Those were my go-to games.
Oh, okay. Awesome, awesome. So you didn't have much Star Wars as a kid. So what got you into the Star Wars collecting then? Because I mean,
Mm.
your collection is, if I may say so, quite phenomenal. You've got some awesome stuff there, and like I say, it's like I'm looking at it now, and I'm just thinking, wow. And I've seen the photos that you sent. So what was it that got you into the Star Wars collecting then, when you didn't have the toys as a kid?
Well, thank you. Well, yeah, like as I said, like growing up, Star Wars was always on and always around, and I always loved it, right?
Mm,
And I remember watching Empire Strikes Back every time it was on the TV, or watching
yeah.
it on VHS. And it was actually the Power of the Force 2 line when that came out in
Oh
sort
yeah.
of 96, 97, which hooked me
Yeah.
in. And it started out with, so I was late teens at the time, I guess. And yeah, it started out, so, oh man, I love Darth Vader. I've got to get a Darth Vader figure. So bought the Darth Vader. And it's like, well, Darth Vader can't be by himself, can he? He needs a stormtrooper. So that was the second one. And then it
Yeah.
was like, actually, maybe I'll get all the Imperials. And then that turned into, well, you can't have it without the good guys. So it
Yeah.
sort of spiraled a bit from there.
Wow, that's
And
incredible. I mean, I think the Power of the Force 2 line, I mean, as you know, it's common, all that sort of stuff. I mean, it did introduce a lot more people into the Star Wars collecting, didn't it? I mean, I know that I wasn't impressed with the line when I first saw it, but I still collected it.
mm,
So I mean, did you? So once you got that, was that it then? Was that it? Was you hooked then, and you just carried on? And did you get the whole of the line? Were you a completist?
not a completist, because life gets in the way when you're that age. So,
Mm,
saving for university at the same time. So,
yeah,
but you're right. And I think the beauty of the Power of the Force 2 was just some of the oddball characters in that they brought in, or
yeah,
those really cool aliens from the vintage line that they brought back. And
yeah,
even though the initial run was the hulking beasts, um, some of those aliens actually still hold up in terms of
yeah,
like their
mm,
sculpt and that. Yeah, and then for me, obviously, then the hype of the rumors going around is like George Lucas is going to make more Star Wars, and then just the hype and the merchandise that came out with Episode 1 in '99. I was hooked on that.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's when I started to do the whole try and buy one to open, one to keep carded.
Okay,
But yeah, it sort of petered out for me. Um, Sort of at the start of Episode 2,
yeah,
when there was just tons of figures. I'd finished university by that stage, but you're trying to save some money, and I just thought there's too many. So I took a massive break, like a massive
okay.
break. Um, how long? Probably a decade break. You
Wow.
grow up,
Yeah, yeah,
get married, start to have kids, go down to one income. You don't have much money for a while, and then
mm,
so I kicked off again, taking the kids through the toy aisles, and you'd see the Star Wars there. And actually, I remember kicking myself now, but it was when the first run of Vintage Collection was in shops, and they were everywhere.
yeah.
But I just picked up a couple, um, and then the next big event I think was the Force Awakens one, and I've been collecting consistently since then.
So what you said about the Force Awakens, when the Phantom Menace and that lot came out, and what did you make of those at the time? Because I know a lot of people, it's you know wasn't as good as the original trilogy. How did you feel? Did you get caught up in the excitement of those films coming out? Was you happy to see them? Were you happy with how they were?
Oh yeah, I was almost to the point of being delusional, Stu. Like I went to the midnight screening of the Phantom Menace. I
Okay.
just loved it. And yeah, there were bits that niggled, like some of the Jar Jar Binks bits and
Yeah. Yeah.
some of the weird politics stuff. But I saw that movie 5 times at the cinema,
Wow.
and I remember the other weirdo thing I did where I was like, the Matrix came out at the same time, if you remember that. So,
Oh,
Ma-
blimey.
Matrix is an incredible film, but I refused to go and see it at the movie theater because I didn't want it competing with Star Wars Episode 1 on the box office.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm with you with the Phantom Menace. I enjoyed it. I loved Darth Maul. I loved the lightsaber scene at the end in the fight, and I thought that was pretty cool. The politics side of things, I didn't mind that so much. That was I because I think that tried to tell the story of how things were progressing, and this guy, he's sort of like manipulating everybody. He's the mastermind behind it, the puppet master, so to speak. But the one thing that did bug me was Jar Jar Binks. And now, I just think George Lucas went a bit over the top with him, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
agree.
So go on. I thought you were going to.
Oh, no. Here you go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. Sorry. Yeah. So, yeah, he annoyed me. And the battle droids, I thought they looked great. I just wasn't too impressed with the voices they had at the time.
Yeah.
Finish, if you know what I mean.
And it's yeah, and it's interesting how the appreciation of the prequel trilogies has grown over time.
Yeah,
and you look back now, and I don't mind the Jar Jar scenes anymore, and it's sort of like they in Phantom Menace they would have a joke, and George Lucas must have gone, oh, that's a great joke, like they kept repeating poodoo, and then the battle droids kept going Roger Roger, and it's like, it was funny one time, but you've done it like 3 times now. It's not that funny.
Yeah, I know, it gets a bit repetitive, doesn't it? But and then episode 2, the Attack of the Clones. What did you make of that?
Oh, at the time, I was blown away because when you come out of the cinema and like the last half an hour of that film with the Geonosis battle, and then the clones coming in that big battle, I think that just blew my mind, and maybe just colored my view of that movie. But you go back now, and it's a little bit odd. Like, it's sort of like a detective film for the first 45 minutes. You go, what's going on?
Absolutely, yeah. And that scene with 3PO going through that droid factory, I was like, oh, what?
Oh yeah.
Do you know, it's really weird. I can watch the original trilogy, and I can watch them, and in my eyes, my own personal opinion, I think they're pretty much near perfect. There's not one thing I say, oh, why did you do that, or why did you do that? I guess apart from the special editions, with the new song at Jabba's Palace and stuff like that. But when I watched the Phantom Menace, I was like, oh, why did they do that with Jar Jar? And then episode 2, it was like, oh, why did they do that with 3PO in that droid factory? Episode 3, do you know what? I didn't mind that. I think that was a fairly decent film. I quite liked that. I mean, how did you feel about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm going to say this every time you ask me a question about Star Wars. I'm going to say I love it.
Yeah. Well, even the sequels.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. But Revenge of the Sith, I love it. It's a great movie, and there's some great stuff in there. But it feels like if you look at the sequel trilogy, the prequel trilogy in totality, Attack of the Clones drags on a bit long because they introduce all that detective rubbish at the start, and then it feels like they have to kind of rush to tell that story of Anakin turning to the dark side. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that did felt rushed. Definitely.
It feels like he turns really quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if they did it again, not that they'll ever do it again, but maybe tell a bit more of that story in the second one, and then it's
Well, I would have liked to have seen him change to Darth Vader at the end of episode 2. So then in episode 3, he was actually Darth Vader, and he was hunting down the remaining Jedi and stuff like that. I think that would have been that's what I would have liked to have seen anyway. But
yeah.
And what about the Clone Wars? I mean, the animated series, I was a bit dubious about that when it first came out, especially the movie, and then seeing it, it made me appreciate the prequels more. Definitely, because of the stories that are telling the clones, and it was more. I liked it. I liked it. I mean, I didn't like the way that they, for the first 1.5 episodes, or not 1.5 episodes, 2.5 seasons, should I say, their story arcs were a bit scattered. They weren't full story arcs. You'd have one story arc start, and then it'd go on to something different, and then you pick it up a bit later. So around about season 3, they sort of like changed that. But I really enjoyed the Clone Wars.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so did I. So the Clone Wars movie is kind of special to me because I remember taking my nephew to that, and he was only about 4 or 5 or 6, and so that was a big Star Wars moment for him. So that was pretty cool to share that as his uncle. And then the Clone Wars TV series itself, I to be honest, I hadn't really watched it until the very first COVID lockdown.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I watched all the seasons up to season 6, like pretty much
in
a row over the course of a couple of weeks. So
wow,
caught up.
What did you make of it?
Oh yeah, really good. And as you say, I think it adds a lot more of the depth to the story of the prequels in general.
Yeah.
So sort of, Anakin's story, and you get more from the clone commanders and all of that. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, they went quite heavily with Dooku, didn't they? I mean, he was in it, featured quite a bit. So you saw a lot of Dooku and stuff like that, which is good because you didn't really see too much of him in the films, did you? To be honest with you, I mean, he didn't really do much in episode 2, and then episode 3. Well, he was in the first 5-10 minutes, and he was gone. So
yeah,
I quite like the way they sort of like did stuff with him. Definitely.
Yeah.
What toy lines do you currently collect, or is it just predominantly Star Wars now?
It's just Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it's just vintage collection at the moment. So focus really on 3.75 inch and the vehicles.
Yeah.
And the world building aspect of it. I do have a few Black Series figures, but I've just stopped getting them because they take up too much space. Like you, I'm running out of space. And yeah, they're just not my thing. I did get the McFarlane 1989 Batman figure just because, as I said, that's my Batman. And I've got a smattering of Marvel Legends from sort of Infinity War Endgame sort of era, just because that's pretty cool. But
awesome
yeah, it's
stuff.
just Star Wars 3.75 for me.
So would you ever get into collecting the original vintage kind of figures, or is that something that you're not going to collect?
I've got a few. I still have my childhood Luke Skywalker indoor, but he's not in great shape. He got a bit battered. I picked up a very good friend of mine, gave me his childhood Star Wars figures. And Randy, I don't know if you know Randy, who's hangs out on Bantha Skull. He's posted over a few vintage figures for me, and I've picked up one or two. But yes, I've got a small collection, but I'm not going to try and collect all the 96 at this stage.
Okay. And what about the vintage collection at the moment? Are you up to speed with those? Are you a completist within that line, or do you just get the ones that you like?
I pretty much get all of them.
Wow.
Some of them are hard to get over here. So the ones that those Army Builder kind of 4 packs, which are Hasbro Pulse exclusives. I have got, hopefully arriving tomorrow, I've got 2 sets of the Jabba's Denizens packs.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah, but that cost a small fortune because I had to order them from the States and then get them sent over by a freight forwarder, and postage to New Zealand at the moment is just crazy. But
yeah.
And then now having a YouTube channel, I feel like I probably buy more than what I might if I didn't have it.
yeah, I know that feeling. So what is it then about the 3 3/4 inch vintage collection for you that sets it apart from any other like the Black Series or the vintage Kenner?
Well, what sets it apart from the vintage Kenner is obviously the modern articulation and paint, which those for a 10 centimeter figure, like the detail's just phenomenal on some of these figures now. Like when they do new sculpts, they are absolutely incredible. And And this year we've had some absolute stunners. And also, the throwback to the old vintage days, that card back, you can't beat that.
No,
That
absolutely, yeah.
Star Wars racetrack card back and the beautiful image of from the show or the movie.
Mm.
And then the scale itself, again, is for me is just about the world building. The fact that you can get play sets and you can get large vehicles and you can set up a scene and interact. I think that really is what it's all about for me.
I've seen like say your photos and stuff like that. You do a lot of world building and army building. What was it that got you into doing the army building? Because you have got quite a few of those stormtroopers and the Emperor's arrival and stuff like that. And then I think you've got the First Order troopers as well. So I mean, what made you decide? I tell you, I'm going to start army building these figures or these scenes and stuff.
Yeah. Wow. I think it's about, for me, it's trying to replicate some of the scenes that you see on screen. I think that's what it's about, and nothing beats like a squad of stormtroopers. I think it just looks cool, and thinking back to Revenge of the Sith, we have that little, what is it, like a 4 or 5 minute montage of the Order 66.
Yeah.
And in that little montage, like, how many bloody action figures is that?
Yeah.
It's a lot. So I think for me it's fun, and those First Order stormtroopers, like, because obviously sequel trilogy is not as popular as everything else, so you can pick those up pretty cheap if you're doing some hunting.
I mean, they do look good. I'll give them that. I mean, they, nothing wrong with the figures. I think the figures, I think the figures are fine. I thought the characters were fine, but I just think it was poorly executed, in my opinion, for the sequels.
Yeah.
But that's not put you off. You'll still get in there, big Star Wars fan.
Yeah. I'm just like, the one of the things that you hear every now and then is that, like, people pop up in comments and they go Disney ruined Star Wars, and I go, but we've got so much more Star Wars since Disney took over. You might not agree with all of the decisions that they made, but George was done, right? He wasn't making any more. So somebody buying Star Wars and continuing it on, to me, is a positive thing. And even if you don't like every single aspect, that's fine. Nobody needs to like all of it. But what you can't argue is there's more of it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But do you think that the issue is? Excuse me, I do apologize. Do you think the issue is it's people's expectations of how they see those films, how they think those films should have been?
I think I do see that a lot in terms of people's reactions. Yeah, they people talk about headcanon and what they
I've spoken about that myself. Yeah, guilty of that.
Yeah. So people have their headcanon and they think this is what's going to happen, and so when it's something different and something they don't like, then they kind of react to it. And I think, after Return of the Jedi, of course, there was all that expanded universe and all of those books and comics and whatever. And some of it, to be honest, is absolute trash, right? It's absolute rubbish. But people still hang on to some of those things and go, yeah, that should have happened like that. Whereas when the TV shows and that come up, I try and be as open-minded as possible. And it's just sit there, right? It's Star Wars, what's going to happen? And Book of Boba Fett's another example where I loved it because it was more Boba Fett. Because, to be honest, he does nothing in the original trilogy, but he's still cool. No, he looks amazing.
The thing is with that, in my opinion, is the mystery of the guy.
Yeah.
You see him for 5 or 10 minutes in Empire Strikes Back. You see him for less time than that in Return of the Jedi. Like you say, he looked absolutely fantastic. And he was made up to be this, badass bounty hunter because he was the one who caught Han Solo. And you're like, oh, God, Han's pretty cool. This guy must be pretty awesome to catch him and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? His ship looked great. I mean, he was just had these gadgets and stuff like that. And I think it was the mystery behind the character. And I don't know about you, but with me, it was my imagination that took me to a place with Boba Fett that we didn't see on, on screen at that time, and then the books came out and stuff like that, and they made him out to be this, again, this badass bounty hunter kind of guy. And then I think it's our expectations were crushed because the Book of Boba Fett wasn't the Boba Fett that we all imagined and saw in Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back, even though we didn't really see too much of him. So again, I put that down to people's expectations.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, but you must have loved. One of my favorite episodes of The Mandalorian is that one on Tython where he turns up and and he uses all the gadgets. So cool.
He was savage. He was savage, and I think for me the disappointment was you saw Boba Fett and he came back and he was absolutely brutal in that episode of The Mandalorian. So when the end of Mandalorian season 2 happened and you had that little clip of the Book of Boba Fett coming in, you see Jabba's palace and it was like, hello, what's going on here? He just Bib Fortuna, fantastic, and this is going to be amazing. But it was nothing like that in the Book of Boba Fett, and the way they turned it out, as if when he said, this isn't for me, this isn't life for me. What was the point? I don't get the point. That's just my personal opinion. There were some good aspects and some good parts to that. Really, I mean, the flashbacks I thought were pretty cool, but I just couldn't get my head around what we're trying to achieve. What were they trying to do? What kind of character has he become now? I mean, I didn't understand, and I thought that it was a wasted opportunity as well. That and be the muscle that he needed instead of the villagers. But again, that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
there you are. And then the King Kong scene at the end as well with the Rancor. I was like, oh, really? But there you go. You can't please everybody, can you? And that's the thing, isn't it? There's so many big Star Wars fans out there. You're not going to please everybody.
Yeah, well, that's right. And I think, just going back to sequel trilogy and what people expected to happen, I think because it came, what was it, 2015 it started. Return of the Jedi was 1983, so that like the gap between the end of Return of the Jedi and the new one was so long. Like Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford had all aged so much that I don't think they could do the movie that people wanted. Like if you were going to do a what's happening after Return of the Jedi with those three legendary characters, it had to be done a long time ago.
Was it? So do you think that they had it in mind to do those films, or it was just a spur of the moment thing with Disney? Right, we're going to buy Star Wars, we're going to do more films.
Yeah, I don't know, but it certainly felt like they made the first one, and it didn't feel like they had a structure written out, did it? It was like they made one, and then they brought in a different director, and then the third movie kind of undid a whole bunch of stuff that the second director brought in. It's like it's not particularly cohesive.
No, and I think that's what people's issues was about it. It wasn't cohesive. It just lacked any kind of direction. But like you say, look, we've got more Star Wars, so like you say, you can't grumble at that. And like I said, you're not going to please everybody. Do you have a Grail piece that you want in your collection? And when I mean Grail piece, I don't necessarily mean it's got to be the most expensive piece in the world. It could be something that you've seen in store, about 3 or 4 months ago, and you feel, oh, I get that, but you go back and it's gone, and you've still not managed to get it. Is there anything like that you would like in your collection?
Yeah, good question. Well, obviously I missed out on the sail barge because it was the very first HasLab. It wasn't, well, even for you guys in the UK, it wasn't really that accessible, was it? It was like
no.
Hasbro chucked up a few on an eBay page, and that was
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did overcompensate a bit when the Razor Crest came out. I ended up getting 2. So one via HasLab, and then a freight forwarder, and then one through a local company. But in the vintage collection, because I wasn't really collecting when the TVC 1.0 was around.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of figures that are really, really expensive now that I never got to see. But so if I did want to chase them, they'd be expensive. But yeah, I'd probably say the sail barge would be the
Yeah,
one.
I mean, I knew about the campaign because I'd heard it, I'd seen it online. I'll back the barge and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool. But again, it wasn't available over in the UK apart from a few on the eBay page. I got mine on the secondary market from the States, and let's just say it was expensive. And then I got it shipped over here, which I totally forgot about when I bought it. I forgot about the shipping costs, and I forgot about the import tax as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it just chucked another load of money on top. So it was expensive. Let's put it that way. So, but it's
yeah.
a fantastic piece. It's a fantastic piece. And is it a piece that you think Hasbro or HasLab should do again?
No.
No.
Personally, I'd love a shot at it.
Yeah.
But for the greater good of the HasLab concept, I don't
Yeah.
think they can, because it would undermine the whole HasLab concept. Because if people then knew that it would come out again, there'd be another chance, then it would
Yeah.
undermine the whole crowdfunding aspect, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool piece, and there's not many of them in New Zealand. I know of a few of them in New Zealand, and I've got a mate of mine bought one, got it sent to his friend's house in the US, and is only just picking it up this year. It's
Wow.
been sitting there for 4 years.
Wow.
And there was one for sale recently. Someone's trying to sell on Trade Me, which is kind of the New Zealand version of eBay, and
Yeah.
they're asking 5,000 New Zealand dollars for it. So,
Yeah, that's
quite a
expensive. Yeah.
yeah.
Where do you stand on the HasLab projects? Do you agree with them? Because I know certain people. I know a few people don't agree with the idea that a massive company like Hasbro should be doing these Kickstarter campaigns and stuff like that. Are you on board with it, or is it something that you don't agree with?
Yeah, I think it's just another way to get products to the market, right? So
Mm,
yeah, sure, they're a big multi-million dollar company, but they've got to make a profit. They're not going to make something massive and huge that nobody wants, and then is just going to sit on retail floors until it gets
absolutely.
clearanced
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So they talk about using it for the dream items, and so far it has been big things. I know Marvel Legends has got what's it, the I don't know what they're called, those big dudes, the Sentinels, and
Sentinels, that's it. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, those are huge items that I just don't, yeah, unless they do like a sideshow kind of a thing. I just don't
Yeah.
see how else they'd get some of that stuff out. They certainly wouldn't, like the sail barge is certainly not something you would expect to see at retail these days.
No, no, and I don't think it would be, and I don't think anything like the Ghost or the Razor Crest would be either. And
Mm,
you've got to look at it from a business point of view. It makes perfect business sense to say, right, we need 8,000 people to back this before it goes into production, and then you get your stretch goals and stuff like that. If people want to buy it, they'll buy it. If they don't, they won't buy it. Like you say, there's no point mass producing something like that that's going to sit in and take up shelf space in a store and sit there for ages, and then the value will go down. It will go on clearance and stuff like that. Hasbro will lose money on that, and I
mm.
get that. Whether people like it or not, these companies, it's for them. It's all about making the money and making a profit and making sales. And it's like that with every company. It's not just the toy company. You're looking at clothing manufacturers and I don't know, all sorts of like different companies and stuff like that. It's all about making money, isn't it? So for
Yeah,
me, it makes a perfect business sense. Whether people agree with it or not, but that's just how it is, isn't it?
yeah, and I think the other aspect too is like they hit the Star Wars team or the Marvel team or whatever. They're
Mm,
part of a larger company, right? So it's also about being able to prove internally to their bosses and their bosses' bosses that it's worthwhile doing this thing. So do you know what I mean? Like, it's because if they put it out as a campaign and they say, look,
Yeah.
21,000 people want this thing, we're going to make it.
Yeah.
Versus if they just try and chuck it in the market and they might not get it approved because someone higher up might go, no, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And imagine if they, imagine, what was it, Cookie Monster and the 6-inch Rancor, those ones didn't back. So that just showed people don't want those things and that they would be just rotting in clearance.
Do you think that the Rancor would have backed if they'd have done certain figures like Malakili, Ula?
I mean, some people have said that, but I'm not a 6-inch collector, so I didn't
Okay.
really have an opinion on it. I was sort of watching it.
Yeah.
I thought it looked cool. But I think it was one of those things, and I think vintage collection HasLabs have been popular because the community's got behind them.
Yeah.
And from what I saw, there were a lot of people in the community that were sort of trash talking the Rancor. So I don't think that helped either. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, multi-million-dollar company, they've got to do all their marketing and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's collecting community as well. And I think that's why the TVC HasLabs, one, they've been awesome vehicles,
Yeah.
but two, the community's like helped promote it and got him behind it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. What about a sentimental piece or a prize piece? Do you have one of those in your collection? Something
Ooh.
sentimental, something prized?
I think at the moment my Razor Crest is probably my centerpiece. I've got the AT-AT and the Millennium Falcon sort of behind me.
Oh no, I meant sentimental was in something that
From the childhood.
from your childhood or something that someone's given to you.
Yeah, I think for me it's hard to pick a piece out of all of them
Yeah.
that really gives that to me. I think yeah, I'd say the collection as a whole has sentimental value for me.
Oh wow. Wow. Awesome. No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Is there a toy line that you do not currently collect, but wouldn't mind starting to collect if you wanted to dip into another toy line? If so, what would that be?
I think there's probably two that have tempted me, but I'm not going to start. One would be Star Wars Lego, and
Okay.
those UCS sets look pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah.
A mate of mine's got the UCS AT-AT and the UCS Millennium Falcon. They're wonderful
Okay.
pieces. And then the other one would be, if I didn't have the Star Wars, possibly Marvel Legends. They seem to
Okay.
get a lot of figures, and yeah.
I'm surprised at that because that's 6-inch scale, isn't it?
Yeah.
Would you not like reconsider going back into your GI Joe days and getting the 3 3/4 inch O-ring figures, or is that
Oh yeah,
sort of
yeah.
is it all past now?
Actually, yeah, the G.I. Joe is probably the other one that's like tempting.
Mm.
That Sky Striker was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was fairly decent. I back that, so that's pretty awesome. But again, people weren't happy with that. They saying, "Oh, this, that, and the other." It's just like you say, it doesn't matter what Hasbro do. They just can't seem to do anything right in some people's eyes, and it's a shame. But you got to give them credit where credit's due with some things because they do get some things right. But then again, they make some really odd decisions, don't they, with certain things? It's like their choice of characters. I mean, you look at the Black series; they seem to be getting all these figures from these different TV shows that Star Wars are putting out, but the vintage collection, they seem to be getting one or two of these figures, and that doesn't make sense. I don't get why that happens. Does that not frustrate you as a TVC collector?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. When you see announcements for figures like Balin and Shin, for the Black series that we'd love to get in TVC. Yeah, we just. But yeah, boy, man, imagine working for a toy company and the amount of crap you get on social media from from grown adults that don't agree with your decisions. It's kind of crazy. It's like,
Yeah.
imagine, if you're doing your job and like constantly being told by people what you're doing wrong. And so, feel like sometimes, like you say, we need to tell them what they're doing right and go, hey, that's an awesome figure. That's a great
Yeah.
choice of figure. This one's outstanding. Because I feel like
Yeah.
the balance of feedback they get is just, that's wrong. That doesn't have elbows. You've done that in the wrong line. Um, it's
And
got the
people
wrong.
wonder why they look so downbeat when they go into these
Yeah.
these postcon things or something like that, or they're in front of the camera and they promoting this, and oh god, here we are, we're going to be in for another hiding. And I've met Emily and Patrick and Chris because they were at Star Wars Celebration,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
and Chris was like, I was chatting to Chris and stuff like that, and he said, oh, so what do you think of the retro collection figures? And I said, look, I really like them. I think they're great. It's a throwback to my childhood with the figures, the kind of figures and stuff like that. I think that's awesome. But however, I do feel that they should have just been for the original trilogy only. And his face kind of dropped, and he turned around and said that he was the guy in charge of heading that department. I was like, oh god. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, brilliant. And yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be tough doing that job. I don't think I'd want to do it. I don't think I'd want to work for Hasbro. It doesn't matter whether it's GI Joe, that their team. I mean, they seem to be more enthusiastic about what they're doing, but the poor guys from the Star Wars team, they just seem to be taking a constant beating, don't they? Which I think is a bit unfair at times. But there you go.
Yeah.
I
I,
mean,
I,
do
I
you
totally agree
sympathise with
with
them?
you on the retro, Stu. Sorry.
You agree or disagree?
I agree with you. Yeah, like
Oh,
retro for like brand new properties is just kind of odd.
yeah.
But oh
I mean,
well.
someone wrote a comment and explained that I seem to have misunderstood what the word retro means. And he said that retro means it's in like a retro style. And I was like, yeah, I get that. It's in a retro style, but those figures weren't around back in the 80s, were they? You didn't have the
Mm.
Book of Boba Fett, you didn't have the Mandalorian. But there you go, never mind. Um, what got you into doing a YouTube channel, and who were your influences?
Hmm. Um. Yeah. So going back a bit before COVID, there's
Yeah,
a group of friends of mine that we all collect Star Wars in some way. So some of them are more vintage, some of them have some of the 6-inch and stuff like that. We're all friends
yeah,
anyway, so we used to do a thing, we used to call it Star Wars Man Cave tours, and the idea was we just like find a weekend where everyone was free.
yeah,
We'd go around everyone's place, uh, we'd drink a couple of beers, we'd talk rubbish about our Star Wars collections. It was just a load of fun, and for me, it was about like, you can have a collection of stuff, but if you're not sharing it with anyone, what's kind of the
yeah,
point? You know what I mean? So that's what it
yeah,
was for me. It was a bit of a social thing. And then during lockdown, our sort of second major lockdown in 2021, I got kicked out to the garage because apparently I'm really loud on the Teams calls, according to my wife. So I was out here in the garage, and people were going, "Hey, that's a cool background you've got there. Where'd you get that from?" And I was going, it's not a background. This is my garage. And they were like, what? And people like got quite interested in the collection. So it was then that I
yeah,
thought, well, we're in lockdown. Can't do, the thing with bring my mates over and have a chat about it. So I just started the YouTube channel as a way to sort of share it and, just for me and have a bit of fun and yeah, nothing too serious.
yeah,
Um, in terms of influences. So obviously, I'm into the vintage collection. So in terms of YouTube, I was watching quite a lot of Boss Bounty,
yeah,
watching Only One Kenobi, watching others. But I did also get to a point where I was like, oh, I've watched all the videos about vintage collection. I want a bit more. So it was sort of yeah, that was kind of the thought process, I guess.
no. That's cool. That's cool. I mean, I I toyed with the idea at the time in 2020 of doing a channel, but it just never materialized. I didn't have the the right equipment and stuff like that. Wasn't really that kind of confident. And at that time, although I collected, I was kind of like an inward kind of person. I didn't like let many people know that I collected and stuff like that. It wasn't something that I put out there. Um, Obviously that's changed now because I'm obviously doing this, but there's still people like people I work with. They don't know I've got a channel. I don't tell them I've got a channel.
Yeah.
I don't. There's a couple of them that know I collect, but that's about it. I don't. It's not something that I just go out and go blah 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 to people in. I've got my friends that are outside the collecting community, and then I've got now people that are inside the collecting community, and I just love sharing it with people. I mean, how do you feel about the community? Do it's you enjoying it and stuff like that? Is it something that you want to carry on doing for the foreseeable future?
Yeah. Oh, and it's been amazing. Like, because I had no idea, right? So I just started this channel, and just as a bit of fun, and then yeah, that, like you say, the YouTube community is like really friendly. Like, people just start reaching out to you
Mm,
and going, "Hey, I came across your channel. That's really cool." And Darth Rock in New Zealand was one of the first to kind of reach out to me and go, "Hey, it's cool that there's another New Zealand YouTuber," and he kind of shared my channel around. And um, yeah, and I've been able to have chats with people like you and Boss Bounty and Only One, and the guys in Australia. We did a couple of we called them Anzac live streams, and that was a lot of fun. It's
yeah,
this it's just like such a really friendly, I guess, collaborative community. Like, it feels like people are supportive of each other, and it's not a
yeah.
competition. Do you know what I mean? So that
Oh
that, that
yeah,
aspect
absolutely.
really
Yeah,
cool.
I've never felt that it's a competition or anything like that. It's the support and it's remarkable. And the thing is, meeting people like yourself and which is great, but then actually getting to meet people face to face as well, which is
Yeah,
pretty cool. I mean, have you met any of the guys face to face in New Zealand at all, or not yet?
yeah. Darth Rock and I have met for a coffee. Yeah,
Awesome.
but yeah, it's one of those things where I would like to get over to the UK or the US for one of the conventions and actually meet some of the guys, face to face. That would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Will you be
um,
going to Tokyo?
I've floated it with the family.
Yeah,
Floated it with the family. Yeah, 2025.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I think it's Japan's on all of our lists in terms of countries we'd like to visit. So
Oh, okay, cool.
it's
Yeah,
it's
there,
it's, it's
that's
definitely a
awesome.
possibility.
Yeah,
Definitely a
I mean,
possibility.
if you can get to go, I think celebration. I mean, we went in 2016, and me and my wife, and we enjoyed it. We went there because we wanted to get to meet people, as in like Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill. They were there at the time.
Mm,
So, and again, we weren't really what's the word, event and stuff like that. We just looking around. We enjoyed it for what it was at that time. This time, when we went beginning of the year, we weren't worried about going to see the people in the films. We were happy to go because we were going to be meeting people like Tim from Bosk's Bounty, Scuba Peter come over, Simon Fandanga, BOE, Only One Kenobi. They were all there, DTM, and it was absolutely brilliant. And just
yeah.
we just congregated at one spot, and then we just like stayed there for the day. But then we just shooting off, on our own and or with little groups and stuff like that, and then coming back and meeting up again. It was just, and that's what made that for me. That just meeting up with people, and it's and when you can do that because you speak to people all the time on the internet and stuff like that and what have you, but seeing them face to face, it's just it's awesome, and it's a fantastic community, definitely. What
Oh,
about content? I mean, did you ever get stuck for content? Do you ever worry about content and stuff like that, or are you just quite happy, just comes to you quite naturally?
your content. Good question. Like, I mean, if I don't have stuff to share or talk about, I just won't do a video. So I haven't done a video in over a week now, but I've got a couple of things arriving probably tomorrow.
Yeah,
So next week might be quite busy. But yeah, sometimes it's just random stuff that I think would be a laugh.
yeah,
um, so I think last year or maybe it was in the year before, I made the Gonk Droid beer fridge, and that just came out of a joke and a comment on somebody's video, and yeah, so I don't worry too much about content.
Yeah.
I did just hope that try and make something that I think is interesting to me at least, and
Yeah.
hopefully other people watch it.
Yeah, no, awesome. I mean, I don't know if you know Chris Miwa from Chasing 80s Toys. No,
Right.
okay. He's Chasing 80s Toys, and Scuba Pete's in there with him as well, and Jeff Barker. And I think I can't remember it word for word, but he said you make the videos for the people that want to watch the videos, or for the people that will watch. So yeah, that's yeah, kind of true words there. Right, coming to the top of the hour, got two more questions for you, sir. What gives you that toy collecting buzz?
Ooh. Um, seeing stuff in stores still.
Yeah.
I've got a local kind of how would you describe it, department store which has had hardly any TVC for ages and ages. It's now chock a block full of stuff, so
Oh
that's
wow.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sadly these days, I think tracking courier packages is part of the buzz, isn't it? You know something's about to arrive.
Yeah.
Opening it
Yeah.
up, get that dopamine hit. But yeah, seeing some of the reveals as well when stuff comes out, and then yeah, I think it's weird now. It's changed, hasn't it? So just
Mm.
about everything is revealed online, and you pre-order, and then you wait. Or in New Zealand, you wait to see, does anyone even going to get it,
Yeah.
and who's going to get it first. And yeah, you guys in the UK seem to get TVC really early, like ahead of everybody else, which is kind of cool.
I don't understand that. I don't understand that. It used to be a time when the Americans got everything first, and then the UK would get it months later, or or even a year later.
Mm,
But now I don't understand how we're getting stuff before the States. It's just, I'm not complaining, obviously. I think it's great for us, but I don't understand how that's happening in America.
yeah.
Weird. But you going back to seeing stuff in the shop. Do you prefer seeing stuff in the shop, or you quite happy getting stuff online?
I'm I'm quite happy to get stuff online. I still love seeing it in the shop, but the issue is, like, where is it going to turn up first? And
Mm,
so local stores got loads at the moment, but I've got it already because I got it all online.
yeah.
Um, I did get lucky once, in not long after I started my YouTube channel. After kids game of netball, I was like, "Do you mind if we shoot to the shops?" So we went to the shops, and New Zealand had got the wave of TVC figures that had that brand new Darth Vader from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and that whole
Okay.
wave.
Yeah, yeah.
And I bought all of those, and I kind of rushed home and did a bit of a review, and it turned out New Zealand was the first place in the world to get that particular wave. So that was a,
Wow.
a, a nice little boost to my channel. And
Yeah, awesome.
shout out to my friends at bantherskull.com. So bantherskull.com had a front page article saying, this figure's arrived and you should check out this video. So that was
Oh,
nice.
cool. That's awesome.
But yeah, it doesn't happen very often. But yeah, I just, for me, it's about just being able to track down the figures that I'm after, really.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, quite successfully, do you track them down, or is you got to wait a while?
Yeah, I mean, it's all over the show here. Like, we've got different retailers, online retailers, and physical retailers, and you just don't know who's getting what. If it's something's a Target or a Walmart exclusive in the States,
Mm.
then you kind of go, "Oh, we might get it here, or we might not. We might have to track it down from overseas, or randomly, it might just turn up in huge numbers at the local shop. You never know. But I guess that's part of the fun.
That sounds frustrating. That would be
Yeah,
frustrating, especially. Oh, wowzers, wowzers.
but
Right,
I guess
last
the
question. Oh, sorry, go on.
oh no, so I was just going to add to that, like, although I haven't met many of the YouTubers in person, I've met a lot of collectors, both in New
Okay.
Zealand and overseas. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Randy, who's based in the States, he came over to New Zealand with his wife for a holiday a few
Oh,
years ago,
wow.
and he actually bought over some figures for me. So
Oh, how
you know,
cool.
we we've got a bit of a pen pal friendship where, you know, and you're having those people around the world that just look out for stuff is just really awesome, and you know, great to meet
Well,
collectors.
yeah, again, that's part of the community, isn't it? For being
Mm.
pretty awesome, pretty awesome. Last question then. What does your collection mean to you?
Yeah, just yeah. What does it mean to me? I mean, like I said before, it doesn't mean a lot if I can't share it with anybody. Um,
Mm.
but it is something that, you know, like this is based in my garage, so it's kind of nice, you know, to come home after work and come out and hang out for a bit and have a look at it. Um, I guess there's different ways you could view the collection. You could go, it's a little bit of a sickness that or an addiction that you have to keep adding to, but
Yeah,
it's also something, you know, that I'm kind of proud of as well.
I would.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a fun hobby.
I'd said before, it's a cracking collection. I've got to say, and I'd love the way you get it displayed and stuff like that. It's does look pretty cool.
Thank you so much.
That's okay. And do you get like a nostalgia buzz from it, or is it just simply because it's Star Wars? It's you know, and that's enough for you.
Yeah, nostalgia buzz. Yeah, I guess so, and also just like a little bit of a buzz of like, you know, you've watched the movie or watched the TV show, and you can see the
Yeah,
figures from it, and maybe replicate some scenes. I think that's a cool one, and it's also a buzz when people come in here and they start looking around and they don't know where to start looking,
yeah.
but then they might find, oh yeah, I remember that. You know, that was one of my favorite scenes, or you know, I really like that character, and yeah,
Awesome
that's
stuff.
cool.
Awesome
That's
stuff.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to say you got a fantastic collection. Unfortunately, that has come to the end of the chat. Where can people find you on social media?
So YouTube, I am
Yep.
middle-aged Kiwi man collecting Star Wars figures. I wanted to have a username that really told you exactly what's on the box, what you're getting yourself in for.
It's probably got to
Um,
be the longest name on YouTube, I've got to say.
yeah, I wanted a funny name. I wanted it to be a little bit silly, a little bit ridiculous, and also, you know, have a silly acronym as well. So Chris from Bantha Skull calls me Mac McSwift, which is the acronym
Mac.
for middle aged Kiwi man collecting Star Wars figures.
Awesome.
And I'm also on Instagram, and I think I can't have such a long name, so it's middle aged Kiwi man Star Wars on Instagram,
Yep.
and that's pretty much it.
Awesome stuff. What I shall do then is I shall put the links to your social media platforms in the description below. So if you aren't subscribed to Middle Aged Kiwi Man collecting Star Wars figures, then I suggest you do so, and also give him a follow on Instagram. Jason, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the channel and having this conversation. As always, the chat does seem to go by rather quickly. So but yeah, it's been fantastic chatting to you, mate. I really do appreciate you coming onto the channel and taking part in this series. So thank you very much, mate.
Thank you so much, Stu, and you've been an awesome host, and I've had a great time chatting with you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, my friend. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Okie dokie then. So that is it for this video. If you stayed with us till the end, really do appreciate you watching. As always, appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Take care, stay safe, and we shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.